tiny island taken over by jungle, isolated in the middle of an endless ocean, and I'm stranded here for the next 100 days with nothing but empty stomachs, barely any resources and no one to share it with. This guy doesn't count. He's not my friend. I'm not just trying to survive, but I'll transform this abandoned tiny land into a tropical paradise with a blooming civilization. Yep, you heard me right. I'm going to get villagers. I'm also going to attempt to get sheep in every color, full enchanted diamond armor, and even other wood types. Sounds easy, right? No, this was not easy at all. This is without a doubt the toughest challenge I've ever faced at all. So grab a snack, kick back and relax, because this is how I survived 100 days on a deserted island in Minecraft Hardcore. The first day started off great. I was summoned into this endless abyss of pain with this thing, and the hunger bar dropping faster than my motivation on a Monday. And no, I didn't turn the sheep into dinner. I'm saving it for, you know, future plans. Next, I stumbled upon a melon. Almost ate the whole thing in a panic. But then I remembered that maybe planning ahead was a good idea, so I turned part of it into seeds. Genius move, right? I'm practically surviving at this point. Then came the unique decision to chop down a tree. I mean, who needs oxygen? And with that, the lonely island was officially introduced to the wonders of human destruction. And then I continued destroying the earth by digging down, collected a few stones, and emerged victorious. Then I figured, why not build the sheep a new home? Of course, I made sure it was in an ethically appropriate size for its species. The sheep was not impressed. After trying to get it inside the hole, it refused to cooperate, so I gave up. Sheep 1, me 0. After that, I went back underground, found an underwater cave and was promptly reminded that the sea is literally everywhere. Yay, island life. After that, I headed back to the surface, upgraded my tools and tried to recruit the sheep for some community service. Let's just say the sheep wasn't on board with my plans again. Bro is lucky I still need him. Then I planted my first food source, because let's face it, at this rate the Minecraft economy might be more stable than the real one. Then I chopped the rest of the tree, cleared the island of bamboo, planted more bamboo, because I guess I like the pain. And because every survival story needs a house, I built my first architectural marvel. Think of it as modern art. Then I made a chest and headed back down. Deep below, I started hearing zombies. My first thought, alright, time to get to work. So I began searching for them, convinced this would be the ultimate showdown. But no, instead a skeleton snuck up on me and delivered a reality check. Turns out I still had no food to heal myself. Great. I decided to leave the zombie search for another day and got back to digging. That's when I struck black gold. Coal, you know, the stuff that's both powering my torches and ruining the planet at the same time. Yep, I was doing my part for the environment. At least now I could see my doom in high definition rather than just fumbling around in the dark. The sweet smell of progress and global warming. Then I popped back up to the surface and lit up the island. Mid-lighting spree. I had yet another showdown with the sheep. Let's just say the sheep wasn't a fan of my illumination skills. After safely depositing my newfound resources into the chest, I figured it was time to dive back underground and bring even more loot to the surface. After all, one chest full of stuff isn't enough for someone with 0 plans, right? Speaking of plans, let's talk strategy while I'm down here, digging my way through the Earth's core. Step 1. Gather enough blocks to build a mob farm, because obviously, who doesn't want to invite a bunch of angry mobs to their island? Step 2. Capture 2 zombie villagers and the witch, then work my magical charm, or potions whatever, to turn them back into villagers. Step 3. Yeah, that's a future me problem. I'll figure it out when I get there. As I continued my epic mining session, the second day began. After I was done mining, I went back up to the surface and upgraded my house. Don't judge me, okay? Then I smelted my hard-earned iron, made myself an iron pickaxe, and immediately questioned where my sheep went. Turns out, the sheep enjoys his ethically appropriate sized home, so to make things even better, I stole his wool. Then I turned bamboo into sticks, made more torches, did some lawn care, and crafted the excess into Panda's favorite block, the bamboo block. It's like biofuel, but for my smelters. Then I sheared the sheep a second time and crafted myself a bed. What's next? A 30-year mortgage on this bamboo block empire. Back to the mines I went, and of course I couldn't resist those zombie sounds. I followed them and found a zombie villager. Can you believe my luck? It's exactly what I needed. I shoved him in a boat. To keep him safe from despawning, took a slap to the face from him and found myself questioning how long those arms of his really are. After that I left him alone, went back up, checked my crops and got disappointed because of course nothing had grown yet. Then I remembered I was surrounded by an ocean, so I embraced my inner sea creature, dove down and caught myself some fish. I slapped that raw cod on my house wall to cook it up. Finally I enjoyed my fish while watching the sunset. Then I realized that you can't cook Nemo, so I ate it raw and just hoped it wasn't from still water. On day 3 I went back down to check on Mr. Fantastic the elastic guy and made sure he was doing well, then turned his lover into a steak and ate it. Spoiler alert, it was not as tasty as it sounds. After that I went deeper straight towards the Earth's core, because why not? I quickly googled checked what height I am so I could find iron and diamonds diamonds. On the way down, I stumbled into a massive cave but chickened out of exploring the cave because no armor means no thank you. I am trying to live long enough to maybe afford my Minecraft mortgage. Once I resurfaced, I harvested my first wheat and handed it over to this thing. Then I chopped down 2 trees and called it a day. On the next morning, I decided it was time to take a dip in the water again and start contributing to the worldwide overfishing crisis. You know, really doing my part for the environment. So I harvested some kelp, because who doesn't love a good seaweed snack? Then I saw this tiny cute fish. I thought about eating him, but he hurt and scared me, so I let him go. After that, I cooked up some of the fish I actually caught, because well, sushi is nice, but grilled fish is the real deal. Then I had this genius idea to expand the island, but for that I needed a ridiculous amount of dirt. And let me tell you, dirt is like the Bitcoin of Minecraft right now. Everyone wants it, but no one has enough. Turns out you can duplicate dirt with gravel. Yep, dirt's about to be the new gold. So I crafted coarse dirt, expanded my field, and turned that stuff into regular dirt and then into farmland. Farming pro level expert. Before heading down again, I dried up some of those seaweed sheets for a quick snack on my next trip into the depths. Sushi to go basically, without rice and all the other good stuff. Dug up some more gravel and dirt, came back up and spent the rest of the day expanding the island. Slowly but surely, this place is going to rival Jeff Bezos' real estate portfolio. So day 5, I'm out in the field, working on the crops, and I start thinking, how does an oak tree even get that big? Like, what's the secret? Is there a tree gym anyway? I head down to Y41 to find some iron. Of course, I'm not gonna be out here with no iron gear. And of course, I stumble across another underwater cave, so I craft some doors, use the Minecraft logic to breathe underwater and feel like an underwater god for a minute. But then, I get bored of playing fish and just got back to mining iron. I made it back up, smelted the iron and took a look at the bamboo. It's growing like it's trying to take over the world. Gotta keep that under control. On day 6, I made myself 2 iron shovels. After that, I spent almost a whole day hollowing out the island cause I needed more dirt. Then I expanded my field and grew my island even bigger. On day 7 in the morning, I chopped down a tree and then saw something glowing in the sea. Naturally, I got curious, so I crafted a boat and set sail. It was basically Atlantis if it was ordered off Wish. There I did the usual, used doors to breathe underwater, fought some zombie drone things and raided the city. I also took this fishing rod course, you know, classic human behavior. Take everything that isn't nailed down. Back on my island, I looked at the treasure map I found and thought, yeah, I'm never gonna find this treasure, so I gave up. Spent the rest of the day fishing, trying to enjoy the sunset, but of course the weather ruined that too. And just to add insult to injury, this was my fishing haul. Talk about a fishy business. On day 8, I spent the morning daydreaming like a true professional. Then I chopped down one of the big jungle trees. I used the wood to expand my shelter and spent at least 5 minutes trying to place this chest just right. No pressure, just me having an existential crisis over how to arrange a box. After that, I treated myself with some more dried sushi paper. Who needs food when you can snack on seaweed? I spent the rest of the day fishing and watching the sunset. Honestly, I was hoping to catch a dolphin or something cool, but ended up with these Nike Airs instead. Guess even in Minecraft, you can't escape the brand deals. On day 9, I did something totally new. I bumped my head 86 times before finally getting into the mine. Then I went back into the big cave, got absolutely wrecked, and had to dig myself into a wall to hide. While I was hiding, I ran into some gravel and completely forgot what had just happened a minute ago and started mining the gravel. Then I found some lapis, found more gravel, and finally made it back to Y41, where I spent the rest of the day strip mining. On day 10, I finally treated myself with some melons. Then I duplicated more dirt and expanded the island. Gotta make it big enough so the wandering trader who needs a ton of space can spawn, because apparently he's got a personal space issue. In between, I expanded my field a bit and made the island even bigger. At this point, my island is starting to look like a small country. I'll probably need a flag soon. After that, I turned the coarse dirt back into regular dirt. Minecraft's version of a glow up. Not long after, I spread the bamboo around my island again, like it's a new trend. Spent the rest of the day digging out half my island just for some sand. Who knew sand could be so valuable? At this rate, I'll have enough sand to start my own beach resort. And just like that, we're 10% done with the challenge. Small steps, but big dreams, right? And if we're being honest, the other 90% will probably involve me accidentally falling into lava. On day 11, I started by taking care of the other patch of sand and doing a bit of farming. Farming is just another way to procrastinate. After that, I bumped my head 86 more times and finally reached height negative 59 to look for diamonds. But instead of diamonds, I found a mineshaft. I found redstone and this skeleton in full gold armor that nearly killed me. So I did what any sensible Minecraft player would do. I ran away. After my health regenerated, I went back to exploring and found another zombie villager. I guess I'm the lucky one today. So I dragged him up to meet the other zombie villager. On the way back up, I ran into my shiny friend, had another little disagreement with him and took his pants with me. Then I went looking for my rotten villager friend so we could finally play tag. After I had found him, he chased me up the stairs. But then he got bored of following me and we swapped roles. When he realized what had happened, he started chasing me again. Classic zombie behavior. Finally, I got him in a boat and then I introduced him to his new friend, just like in a Netflix dating show. So, on the morning of day 12, I expanded my field and crafted a few more chests. Nothing says progress like 4 chests full of random junk. I made 1 chest specifically for my most important resources, because we all know that's the only chest that actually gets used. Then I spent about 30 minutes organizing, which is basically my version of a workout. These are the items I have for the mob farm already, but I need 4 times as many blocks. I'm building the farm from voltrox, let's see how that goes. But before building the farm, I did what I do best. Bumped my head 86 times on the way down to -59 for diamonds. After wandering around in the mineshaft and finding some redstone, I mined some gravel. Then I found my first diamond on the ceiling. Guess mining that gravel paid off. Then I found a lava lake, and guess what? More diamonds. Of course, it was just 1. I'm starting to think Minecraft is playing hard to get. Then I found a minecart with a chest, and inside was a name tag. Oh great, because naming my non-existent pets is definitely priority number 1. But hey, shortly after, I finally found more than just 1 diamond. About time, right? Now I can start paying off my student loans. Then it was about time to head back to the surface. But before that, I wanted to mine the redstone here. And in the process, I almost got crushed by a pile of gravel. After nearly having an intimate moment with suffocating gravel, I made my way back up and took a look at my haul and realized that I'll probably never be as skilled at mining as Sungjin Woo. On day 13, I expanded my island again and dealt with the bamboo overpopulation once more. Then I turned tons of bamboo into blocks so I'd have fuel for my furnaces. At this point, bamboo is my new currency. Forget gold, bamboo's the new Bitcoin, just waiting to crash any minute now. After that, I sorted through my lovely ore chest and realized I already had 10 diamonds. I made a diamond pickaxe and tried to craft a chest plate, but nope, that didn't work. Guess even the diamond economy isn't doing great, huh? For the rest of the day, I took care of the second massive jungle tree. My island was starting to look less like a jungle and more like a parking lot, not a single tree inside. But hey, I planted a few new ones just to keep up the illusion that this place was once a thriving jungle. The next day, I expanded the island again, trying to make it somewhat oval so it looks at least half natural. Then I used my hoe to turn the dirt back into regular dirt. I briefly thought about making a hojo but decided against it since we're on YouTube and because I love my girlfriend. After that, I planted a few more jungle trees, crafted myself an iron hoe and turned even more dirt into regular dirt. Once I expanded my field a bit and planted some beetroot I got from a minecart down below, I lit up the island. Then I noticed the sheep somehow escaped from its properly sized pen. I offered it a slice of melon, but that damn animal wouldn't eat it. For the rest of the day, I went fishing, but the catch was like grey loot. On day 15, I went back down into the mine and spent the entire day searching for resources. Found some coal that just wouldn't stop, then some iron, and guess what? More water. At this point, I'm starting to think Minecraft's just trying to make me an underwater welder. Like, forget mining, I'm one accidental TNT explosion away from opening a new underwater construction business. On day 16, I sorted and smelted the resources from the day before. Then I went ahead and shaved the sheep again, just to make sure it didn't feel too comfortable. After that, I turned the pumpkin into seeds and planted them. Then I decided to deal with that giant oak tree using flint and steel. Smells like California. Then I got back to work on my field and planted even more trees. Then crafted a full set of iron armor. After that, I defended my island from this foreign invader, like any responsible leader would do. Spent the rest of the day fishing to catch that perfect sunset. Too bad the fish were more into the view than the hook. On the next day, I started by making a pumpkin lantern to properly light up my farm bed. Then I went underground and dug out half of my island because I needed more materials for the mob farm. Eventually, I got lazy and just used whatever material I had. I turned jungle wood into planks to make sure I had enough blocks. The rest of day 17 was spent AFK because I forgot to turn off my furnace in real life. Almost made it to California. I gotta stop making jokes about that. I started the day AFK again. Or maybe I was still AFK from the night before. Who knows? Anyway, I decided to check on my farm for a bit because, well, I had tasks to do. After that, I spent the rest of the day fishing. You know, just trying to avoid doing anything productive like the rest of my life. In the morning of day 19, I got back to my fishing routine. After catching some fish, I was like, alright, that's enough. Let's get back to the grind. So I started working on the mob farm. I crafted everything I needed, which honestly was just me throwing together whatever random materials I could find. I mean, at this point, who cares what I use? I took my little boat, sailed out to sea, and used the water lilies I fished up to place a block next to them. Then I proceeded to build a 100 block tower, placed ladders on it, built the mob catching platform where they break their legs off spawning, a shaft, and even a chest to collect all the loot. After all that, I went back to my base to sleep. So, day 20 was all about finishing that mob farm, grabbed the last resources I needed, sailed over, and started building again. I made the water channel first, only to realize it was 1 block too long. Classic move, had to quickly fix that. Then I built a platform where the mobs would spawn and boxed it all in. Jumped down, grabbed some water, and flooded everything. Once that was sorted, I slapped a roof on, lit it all up, and almost forgot to place the trapdoors. Can't have mobs falling without those. I tore down my makeshift tower, expanded the platform, and then BAM! The first monsters started spawning. The farm works. At that point, I realized I'd been working straight through the night. Guess I got a little carried away. Watching the mobs fall was like watching a free fall competition, except with way more leg-breaking sound effects. Seriously, if mobs had insurance, the insurance company would probably go bankrupt. Day 21 was pretty much an all-day monster slaying extravaganza. I spent the day waiting for something exciting, like a witch or another zombie villager to spawn. Spoiler alert, it didn't. But hey, one of those zombies actually dropped a potato. Yes, a glorious potato. Finally, some gourmet cuisine for my deserted island lifestyle. Goodbye hunger. Hello baked potatoes. And to top it all off, some random monster decided to give me a chain helmet. Talk about high fashion. Who needs enchanted diamond gear when I've got this beauty? With my new stylish headgear and a life-saving potato, I was basically unstoppable. By evening, I decided to head back to my island to get some sleep. Gotta be well rested for tomorrow's round of potato farming and zombie backing. The next day, I started by organizing my inventory a bit. You know, just trying to make sense of the chaos. Then, I showed the sheep who's the boss around here. It's me. After that, I played a round of Farming Simulator. So satisfying. Honestly, there's just something about watching those crops grow that makes me feel like a true agricultural genius. But then, tragedy struck. I was in the middle of expanding my field to double its size when my hoe broke. And of course, that's when I realized I had no wood or stone left because I used it all for the mob farm. So, what did I do? I crafted some sticks out of bamboo because apparently I'm a survival expert now. And then, in a truly mysterious turn of events, my house disappeared. Poof, gone. Apparently, my house was the sacrifice the Minecraft gods demanded. With enough hoes in my inventory, because you can never have too many hoes. I finally finished building the field. Then, I chopped down the rest of the bamboo. And then, I transformed my entire island into a barren wasteland with no trees in sight. Why? Because I needed wood. And I had already used it all on the mob farm. So, there I was, standing on my dirt patch of an island, wondering if I should just rename this series 100 Days of Regret. But hey, at least I have a mob farm now, right? Day 23 started with me cleaning up the remains of my house. You know, just your typical Minecraft demolition job. After that, I planted some trees and sped up their growth with bone meal, because who has time to wait for nature? Not me. Then, I had the brilliant idea to transport the witch from the mob farm to my island. My plan? Use a boat and fish it over. And guess what? The sheep was actually useful for once. Who knew? In the afternoon, I headed back to the mob farm, turned on F3 hitboxes, and spent the rest of the day there. Honestly, it was less about efficiency and more about me trying to figure out how hitboxes even work. Spoiler, I still don't know. Day 24 began just like the last one, with the sound of breaking bones. Classic Minecraft morning. I crafted an axe to make sure I didn't accidentally kill the witch or the zombie villager, because you know, that would be such a tragedy. Most of the day was uneventful. But then, finally, a zombie villager spawned. I rushed up to the shaft, blocked it off, and made sure the zombie villager was alone down there. But then, disaster struck. I tried to open the side and let the zombie villager walk into the boat, but apparently, he could just walk over the boat hitbox. He knocked me down, and by the time I got back up, he had despawned. What a great day. I just kept going, like nothing happened, because what else can you do? Still traumatized from the previous day, I started day 25 the same way. Eventually, I got bored and decided to head back to my island. I spent some quality time with my sheep, took care of that jungle tree, and then went back down into the mines to gather more resources. Why? Because I decided to build a second level on the mob farm to speed things up. Down in the mines, I explored the mine shaft further, found some redstone, an empty minecart, and even diamonds under the lava that I had apparently missed. I also found another minecart with an enchanted book, Aqua Affinity. Of course, the ocean still haunts me, even underground. For the rest of the day, I fought my way through the mines and collected some resources. Because what's a day in Minecraft without a little mining? Day 26 started at level 41 in my strip mine. I got lost on my way back up until I finally found the stairs. When I got back to the surface, I wondered why I even went mining in the first place, since I barely brought any resources back. I sorted and smelted what I had, grabbed some melons, and crafted everything I needed for the second level of the mob farm. Once I got up there, I built the second level and started working on the water channel for the mobs to fall through. Then I realized I didn't even need to build a water channel, so I tore it down and went to sleep. I spent the morning of day 27 fixing my mistake from the previous day. Can someone explain to me why a stone axe is so slow? Seriously, it's like watching paint dry. I dug out the floor everywhere and placed trapdoors. Then I thought I saw a witch spawn because of some particles, but it was just a spider with blue particles. Can anyone tell me why the spider had blue particles? No? Okay. I tore down the rest of my unnecessary work, blocked off the center so mobs wouldn't fall all the way down and die instantly, and built an outer wall. Then I added a roof, destroyed all the torches inside, opened the trapdoors, and hoped no creepers would spawn, because that would be just my luck. Day 28 was the same old routine. Hit mobs until I die. Then I heard a witch, blocked off the top, and carefully killed all the other mobs. I built a small room for the witch with a boat inside, opened the back, and waited for her to walk out and sit in the boat. But when I tried to place the boat, the witch was too fat. I spammed right click and accidentally had an intimate moment with her. With some panic and quick reflexes, I managed to separate myself from her. Then I built this thing here and used a fishing rod to throw the witch down into the ocean. While I was doing that, she gave me a nice little poison potion. Thanks, I guess. Day 29 started with me opening the shaft and seeing a chicken spawn with a baby villager. I have no idea how rare that is, but I'm guessing the odds are like 0.2 2% or something. I wanted the chicken, so I killed everything else. Then I noticed a witch had spawned again, so I kept her alive too. I carefully killed the baby villager, put the chicken in a boat, and did the same with the witch. I used the fishing rod to throw the witch down into the ocean again, and checked my chest full of mob drops. Let's just say it was worth it. Then came the fun part. I took apart this weird witch tower with the fishing rod and tried to reel the witch in the boat toward my island. Of course, she kept throwing potions at me. I made some bread because my melons were empty again, because, you know, priorities. Day 30 was all about trying to get the witch to my island with the fishing rod, but then the boat just sank for no reason. I hoped the witch would follow me, but she had other plans and swam off in some random direction. I tried to pull her toward the island with the fishing rod, but it broke. I had to make a new one, and when I turned away for a second, she despawned. Great, luckily, I had a second witch in the boat. The same thing happened. The boat sank. I tried to pull her to land, and then I had to wait out a poison potion she threw at me. Just before reaching land, she decided to swim off in another direction instead of coming ashore. My fishing rod broke again, and by the time I got back to her, she despawned right in front of my eyes. What a day. After wasting the last 5 days trying to get that stupid witch to my zombie villagers inside my island, I gave up on that plan and headed back to my mob farm. My new strategy: let the zombie villagers spawn up there, wait for a witch to spawn, and then turn them back into normal villagers. When I arrived, I first sent my chicken in the boat back into the ocean with the fishing rod, because, you know, the chicken had to contribute something to this economy. Then I crafted an axe, opened the shaft so new mobs could spawn, and switched to my sword because there were way too many monsters. I made quick work of them, smacking their feet because apparently I have a foot fetish. Just kidding, I don't. Finally, a zombie villager spawned. I blocked off the shaft, freed him from his friends, and built a little house for him. Then I placed him in his new house. I tried to sleep, but apparently there were monsters nearby. How weird, right? Next to a mob farm. So I took my bed, moved down a bit, and slept behind the ladder, because nothing says safety like sleeping like a rock climber. Day 32 started with me brainstorming how to design the hotel for my 2 zombies and the witch. So far, only 1 zombie had checked in, so I did some remodeling and kept searching for more guests. I sorted through my mob drops chest, because even in Minecraft, inflation is real, and I needed to manage my resources. Soon enough, another zombie villager spawned. I guess expanding the mob farm paid off. I led him to the first zombie, put them both in a boat, and closed the shaft because a witch had spawned. But of course, there was a creeper right next to her and some other zombies. I had to separate them, but finally, I had a witch and 2 zombie villagers up there. Almost. I still needed to get the witch into the boat. She's a bit stubborn, but who isn't in this economy? On day 33, I wanted to craft some golden apples to cure the zombie villagers, but then I realized I didn't have enough gold. Typical. So I went back down into the mines, and this time I actually ventured into the big cave. I burned most of the mobs with a lava bucket, because why fight fair when you can just set everything on fire? I almost died to a creeper, blocked some skeletons with my shield, and blazed lava under them while lighting up the cave. Then a skeleton in full gold armor showed up. This time I was better equipped, but of course the creeper decided to blow it up. I still almost died to an enchanted bow skeleton, but thanks to my shield and some vines blocking its view, I survived. I finally mined some gold, fought off more mobs with lava, and then left the cave to sleep, because even in Minecraft you need a good night's rest after a near-death experience. After the near-death experience from the previous day, I crafted a diamond chestplate to calm my nerves. Then I went back down into the cave because I'm addicted to adrenaline. I mined some iron, blew up more creepers, and sniped some skeletons with my bow. Then I accidentally looked at an enderman, panicked, and placed water to defend myself. I killed him because he didn't want to join my whirlpool party. I blew up even more creepers, mined more gold, and found a ravine. Then I had to fight Spider-Man or something. At the bottom, I mined even more gold and then headed back up. When I got back to the surface, I thought about freeing the chicken from the boat, but then I noticed a cute little parrot. I tamed it with some seeds, because even in Minecraft I need a pet to keep me sane in this messed up world. On the morning of day 35, I finally freed the chicken from the boat, something I meant to do yesterday. Then I crafted 2 golden apples and headed to the mob farm. The real fun began. I spent the entire day trying to get the witch to throw a weakness potion. Spoiler, it didn't work. By the end of the day, I went back to my island, tore down part of my field and made some food, because you can't survive without carbs. Day 36 was more of the same, trying to get the witch to throw a weakness potion. She kept throwing poison and instant damage potions instead. I googled it and found out she has a 25% chance to throw a weakness potion if the player is within 3 blocks. No wonder she hadn't thrown one yet. I was basically in another zip code. I built this weird under construction thing to get closer to her, but it didn't work. She kept poisoning herself, and I couldn't get between the 2 zombies because their arms were ridiculously long. I tried pulling one with a fishing rod, but I accidentally clicked the boat and almost died. Somehow I survived with half a heart. Don't ask me how I keep pulling this off, it's pure luck. I managed to get the zombie back into the boat, and that was pretty much the end of the day. Still recovering from the near-death experiences of the previous days. I think I developed PTSD, but no time for therapy. I had work to do. I pulled the zombie with the fishing rod to make room, built a little window to see the witch, and waited for her to throw a weakness potion. Of course, she threw poison and instant damage first. Finally, she threw a weakness potion, but it only hit me, not the zombies. So I waited did some more. At one point, I accidentally sat in the boat with the witch because I wanted to eat bread. We had another intimate moment, but this time I stayed calm because escaping was easier. Still, this economy is killing me, both in-game and IRL. After what felt like forever, the witch finally threw a weakness potion that hit both zombies. I blocked her off, fed the zombies golden apples, and separated them so nothing could go wrong. It took me 38 days to get villagers. I expected it to take 20, but who am I kidding? I'm terrible at planning and time management. Once they were cured, I sent them down toward the ocean. They landed on my platform, then I took the most important mob drops. Turns out, the mob farm was worth it. I put on this fancy helmet and dealt with the other villager. I accidentally broke his boat and he escaped, but after a long chase, he sat in the witch's boat. Villagers have no survival instincts. Natural selection at its finest. I killed the witch and hoped nothing would happen to the two villagers. The next morning, I sent the two villagers toward the ocean and headed to my island. On the way, I saw a cute little white parrot, but it disappeared because I had to keep passive mob spawns open for sheep. You saw nothing. Good girl. I sorted my inventory and searched online for a villager breeder design. I went with Voltrox's design, link in the description, and started clearing space inside my island to build it. Because even stranded on a deserted island, you need a good real estate plan. On day 40, I finished placing the dirt for the farm, turned it into farmland, and built walls around it. I also built a small room, placed 2 composters for the villagers' shops, and planted carrots. I used bone meal to speed up the growth because I'm impatient. I placed beds so the villagers could breed, and added trapdoors so the babies would fall into a hole and get flushed forward, because nothing says efficient breeding like a baby villager water slide. On day 41, I crafted some more items for the farm. I accidentally built a dropper instead of a hopper, realized my mistake and fixed it. I installed this weird rail system and remembered we're stranded on a deserted island. The farm was almost done and it's pretty self-explanatory. I brought the first villager down and he immediately destroyed my crops, so I forced him into slave labor. He'll never see daylight again. I did the same with the second villager and used more bone meal to speed up the carrot growth, because productivity is key. On day 42, I tore down part of my wheat field, replanted the seeds, and decided to rebuild the entire field. I made 2 stacks of bread from my wheat harvest and gave it to the villagers, because you know, I'm impatient. Then I went back into the big cave and mined gravel, and more gravel, and even more gravel. You can probably guess what came next. More gravel while I was in the cave. Day 43 began. I spent it mining even more gravel. I found some diamonds and crafted a wooden shovel because I'm broke. I mined even more gravel, crafted more wooden shovels, and mined even more gravel until my inventory was full of stupid gravel. I finally had enough and went back to the surface. On day 44, I started turning the massive amounts of gravel into dirt to expand my island. I checked the farm and saw the first baby villager had spawned. He got lucky and was allowed to leave, but had to stay in a minecart for now. I changed my mind and gave him a nice boat instead. These were his first days into slavery. I decided to double the size of my island and started outlining it with dirt. Once I finished, I ran around to check if it looked natural. I was pretty happy with the result, so I started filling it in. Urban sprawl or something I don't know. Day 45 started with me moving a villager from a minecart to a new boat, but the villager decided to make love with the other one already in the boat. I continued expanding my island, ran out of dirt, and hollowed out more of my island to get more dirt. I built a new staircase and used the dirt to expand my island again, because you can never have enough space. Since I didn't have enough dirt from the previous days, day 46 was all about placing dirt. 110% dirt. I spent the entire day placing dirt, tore down half my island to get more dirt, and turned it into normal dirt. This went on for the rest of the day. Why do I have to grind for my resources? Day 47. You can probably guess what I did. Yep, more dirt. Honestly, I don't even know what to say. I spent the entire day placing dirt and turning it into normal dirt so grass could grow. We really needed wandering crater at this point. Day 48. The next morning, I found monsters on my island for the first time. I quickly dealt with them, placed torches, and then went AFK for half the day. I can't even remember what I did. On day 49, I decided to tear down my field and cover it with dirt to give my island some structure. I filled in the area, took care of some trees, and chopped down a big jungle tree. Deforestation probably has no consequences. That's why we're missing more than 20% of the Brazilian rainforest between 1970 and 2018. On the morning of day 50, I filled in the remaining spots with dirt and tried to make the island look somewhat decent by planting some trees. After all, we have to counteract the destruction of nature by humans somehow. I placed torches everywhere, used more bone meal, and planted more bamboo to make the island look like a jungle again. Then I went to the back of the island with my hoe to turn the dirt into grass. I regretted using bone meal 5 minutes ago and tore down the tall grass. Landscaping's a pain. By the end of day 50, it finally hit me just how tough this challenge was turning out to be, especially considering the goals I set for myself. We were already halfway through the challenge, but I barely scratched the surface of my goals. Only about a third of them were somewhat completed. And don't even get me started on how my island looked. Let's just say it wasn't winning any beauty contests, so it was definitely time to pick up the pace. Oh, and by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, maybe consider subscribing. It would really help me out, since I'm currently sitting at 100 100 subscribers. And my goal is to hit 1000 by the end of the year. Alright, shutting up now, back to the grind. Finally, on day 51, a wandering trader decided to show up. Naturally, I threw him in a boat. Didn't want him wandering off, right? And of course, I kindly took care of his llamas. One of them even tried to make a run for it. Not today, llama, not today. The trader didn't have much, but the dye was cool. So I crafted a fletching table and tried to force my villager to pick up a job. He wasn't having it. After crafting another table and offering some free will options, it worked. Next, I crafted a bunch of sticks out of bamboo and traded them for emeralds with my new villager friend. He ran out of stock pretty quick. Before calling it a day, I snagged some grey dye, light green dye and an acacia sapling from the trader. Then I went on a crafting spree and made a bunch of stone swords to deal with my ever-growing bamboo forest because I needed more sticks, like a lot more sticks. To wrap up the day, I kicked those two villagers who were arguing over my bed out of the way. Sorry fellas, it's my bed now. I woke up on day 52, grabbed the bamboo I hadn't gotten around to collecting and did a bit of trading with those turtle doves, aka my villagers. I also cleared out more grass and kicked off a massive bamboo farming operation. Seriously, the whole island was turning into a bamboo plantation. Then I stumbled upon this sheep and the villagers stuck in my farm. Not sure how or why they ended up in my farm, but that needed fixing fast. Unfortunately, during my heroic rescue attempt, one of my villagers, well, let's just say he didn't make it. Problem solved, I guess. Now I just needed to deal with the sheep. I placed a block, gave the sheep a chance to redeem itself and then shoved it in a boat because trust me, that's how you deal with troublemakers. After that, I dragged another villager out of the breeder and gave him a job. His trades were garbage, but for some reason I went ahead and traded with him anyway, locking in those awful deals. Rookie mistake. The next morning, I climbed up my trusty jungle tree and built a giant dirt platform because I wanted to track passive mobs using a mod. I figured I'd need another sheep and that was only going to happen if the mob cap was low enough. So I made sure the passive mob cap was under 10 and started praying to the Minecraft gods. After that, I built a dirt bridge to distance myself from the platform so mobs could spawn without me getting in the way. It was like trying to encourage someone to show up at a party by acting like you're not too eager. By day 54, I'd already changed my mind again and instead built a tower out of dirt and ladders to get to the right height for mob spawns. Then I crafted a ridiculous number of stone swords and spent the evening collecting bamboo under the sunset, which was surprisingly peaceful. I traded my giant pile of sticks for emeralds. Honestly, I think my villager was getting scammed, but that's capitalism for you. I also climbed up this dirt staircase I built, in the hopes that grass would start growing up there. Spoiler alert, it took way too long. After that, I pulled more villagers from my breeder and started building a platform to add some elevation to my island because I was getting tired of how flat it was. Looking back, I really should have built the island this way from the start, instead of aimlessly expanding it. But hey, we'll see how it turns out. Oh, and I also fought a drowned carrying a trident. That guy did way more damage than I expected, so I did the honorable thing. I ran away, grabbed my bow, finished him off from a safe distance, and picked up his fork. Naturally, I spent a good 5 minutes throwing it around like a toy until I lost it. Fun while it lasted. The next day, I got back to work, filling in the elevated platform. After crafting more sticks, I traded for even more emeralds and bought some acacia saplings. Then, mysteriously, the wandering trader disappeared. Not sure if that's a bug or just his way of saying, I've had enough of your island. I went AFK for about 5 minutes, and when I came back, a new wandering trader had already spawned. This time, he didn't have any llamas. Lucky me, I threw him in a boat and finally got my hands on some sugarcane. It was the holy grail I'd been waiting for. Planted it immediately because I needed it for paper and enchanting. Sure, I could have gone searching for a stronghold, but since my world was basically one big ocean, I wasn't even sure one would spawn. After that, I crafted a grindstone, disenchanted a book I'd fished up like 30 days ago, and threw more bamboo into the stick trade machine. I also snagged a dark oak sapling, stared sadly at my little patch of sugarcane, and kept working on the platform. At this point, it was too much for my brain to focus on just one task, so I bounced between filling the platform, harvesting bamboo, and buying emeralds. Alright, today was one of those why do I do this to myself kind of days. So I woke up, grabbed some bone meal, and gave my dark oak tree a little pep talk. Well, more like a bone meal boost, but you get the idea. That thing shot up faster than an iPad kid hearing the TikTok theme. Chopped it down, planned out the foundation of my villager trading hall, and started figuring out what block palette I wanted. Realized I needed way more wood, like a lot. So naturally, I hit that bone meal again, grew another tree, chopped it down, rinse and repeat. The trees didn't stand a chance. The next day was, well, let's just say it was wood. Wood and more wood. Seriously, I think I spent the entire day just chopping down trees. Started building up the frame of the trading hall, trying to make it look fancy, but I'm running on limited resources here. So the block palette I came up with was mostly just clean stone and a bit of jungle wood. Yeah, jungle wood. It kinda worked, kinda. But let's just say I wasn't totally feeling it by the end of the day. Day 59. So, because I clearly had nothing better to do with my life, I decided to experiment. Tried stripping the wood for a cleaner look. Big mistake. It looked awful. Like, I can't believe I just did that awful. So I reversed everything and put the bark back on the wood. Thank you, creative mode, for being there in spirit. Then I decided to spice things up a bit. Grabbed some leaves, slapped them around the build, and I'm not gonna lie, it looked kinda cool. In my impatience, beans. I harvested the sugarcane, turned it into paper and crafted some books. No llamas around, so I had to imagine their leather. Kidding, of course. Then I crafted a bookshelf, made myself a lectern, and decided to get a librarian villager. Cue the endless grind for the right trade. Finally, he offered me bookshelves and I took that deal faster than a kid, trading Pokemon cards at recess. But I had no emeralds left, so locking in that deal, yeah, future me problem. Day 60. Today was Emerald Grind 2.0. Chopped down my bamboo empire, turned it all into sticks, and traded like a madman. Got some emeralds back, locked in that bookshelf trade, and even taught the villager a new trade skill. Turns out the dude offered me mending on the second try, but I wasn't about that life yet. I needed Silk Touch first. After hours of rolling the dice with trades, I finally got it. To celebrate, I ventured into the caves to grab some obsidian. Almost flooded my whole mine in the process. Classic move, right? Anyway, I powered through, grabbed my 4 obsidian blocks, and struggled my way back to the surface. Because, you know, stairs are overrated. Day 61. Today was the day. I finally crafted my enchanting table, made myself a new diamond pickaxe too, because I'm fancy like that. But let's not forget about those trees and bamboo. Yep, I had to chop even more for emeralds. After gathering enough bookshelves, I hit that max level enchant, and let me tell you, the enchantments I got, absolute chef's kiss. I felt like I had won the Minecraft lottery. Oh, and right after that, I snagged another great enchantment. Seriously, the RNG gods were smiling down on me today. Day 62. Enchanted my diamond chestplate this morning, and let me tell you, I was looking fancy. With my shiny new fortune-free pickaxe in hand, I dove back into the mines and went on a resource rampage. And wow, this pickaxe, it was like going from a rusty old bike to a sports car. It just tore through everything. By the end of the day, I had a haul that would make any Minecraft player jealous. So yeah, that was a good day. Day 63. Spent today smelting everything I mined yesterday, and let me tell you, it felt like Christmas morning. Sorted all my ores into the chests. No, my storage system isn't a mess at all. Why do you ask? Afterward, I finally crafted a full set of diamond armor and tools. Yeah, it was about time. Don't judge me. Enchanted everything like the enchanting addict I've become. So one of my goals was officially crossed off. Let's not talk about the sword. Anyway, tried out my new axe, and wow, it cuts through trees like a hot knife through butter. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. I finally had enough iron to craft an anvil. I placed it down like a boss, feeling like I just unlocked some next level blacksmith powers. First thing I did, I slapped Silk Touch onto my pickaxe. Why Silk Touch, you ask? Well, 2 reasons. 1, I wanted to turn the dirt surface on my tree into beautiful lush grass. 2, I needed it for future house building plans, because plain cobblestone just wasn't gonna cut it for my dream home. So I grabbed some grass blocks, carefully placing them on the top of my tree, and expanded the area a bit. Got to give those mobs a bit more real estate to spawn. I'm basically running a 5-star monster hotel up there. To wrap it all up, I spent the rest of the day mining a ton of stone from my island, since I knew I'd need a mountain of it for my house. Honestly, at this point, my island's getting a bit of a facelift, less natural paradise, more construction zone. Day 64 was a rollercoaster of bad design decisions. I continued building the villager trading hall, or at least that was the plan. I decided to switch up the door design because, you know, gotta keep things fresh. Spent a good chunk of time crafting and placing the new design, stepped back to admire my work, and immediately hated it. So what did I do? I tore it all down. Classic. Determined to make it right. I added a bit of decoration here and there, some fancy blocks, maybe a flower or two, trying to convince myself I had a vision. Spoiler alert, I did not. Then I thought maybe a different type of door will fix this, because apparently doors hold the key to architectural success. Built another version, stepped back again, and guess what? Yep, hated it even more. At this point, I was just playing Door Simulator instead of Minecraft. In the end, after all the experimenting and a solid dose of frustration, I just went back to the original door design I had from the start, the one I thought wasn't good enough. Turns out, it was fine all along. So yeah, after wasting half the day, the trading hall was exactly the same as it was in the beginning. Productivity at its finest. Day 65. Started by chopping down one of those massive jungle trees, because apparently I enjoyed torturing myself. Then I went back to work on my house, specifically the roof. Decided to go with deep slate stone for that gothic chic look. Once the general outline was done, I filled in the roof and added some extra details. Then some passive mobs spawned, taking up valuable real estate for more useful animals. Crafted some lanterns to light the place up a bit, because I'm all about that cozy atmospheric vibe. Oh, and threw in some windows, because why not? Day 66 started off with a mission. Check the mob spawns. Bright and early, I climbed up to my spawning platform, hoping for something exciting, but halfway up I heard mooing. Cows. Definitely cows. When I reached the top, there they were. 2 cows just chilling like they owned the place. Oh, and guess who else showed up? 2 representatives from the tax office, clearly there to seize my bamboo empire. Sorry fellas, but I'm running a completely legitimate operation here. Probably. Obviously, I kept the cows. Free steak and leather in the future. Hello? But the tax collectors? Yeah, they were swiftly escorted to court. No taxes will be paid today. With those 2 gone, I focused on getting my cows down safely. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted something far more concerning. An ocelot. This little menace was blocking my sheep spawns. Absolutely unacceptable. After dealing with the ocelot problem, don't ask how, I finished leading the second cow down to safety and went back up one more time to build myself a secure AFK 2K platform. No way was I sitting around like an idiot, only to get shot off by a skeleton. So I waited and waited and waited some more. Guess what spawned? Just the same foreign cat from before. Great, because that's exactly what I needed. I swear, at this point, I was running an ocelot sanctuary, not a survival island. Frustrated, I climbed back up again, and finally, 2 sheep spawned. Absolute victory. And another guy from the tax office. These people do not give up. I still refuse to pay. I hurriedly let the 2 sheep down before the game decided to throw more unwanted surprises at me. But just as I was about to call it a day, something else caught my eye. Another black sheep had spawned at the top. That made 3 sheep in total. A solid win. I herded them all down and secured them on my island. At the end of the day, I had 2 cows, 3 sheep and 0 taxes paid. Productivity at its finest. So, day 67 started off with me building a pen for the sheep. Sounds simple, right? Just get those fluffy creatures out of their boats and into their new luxurious living quarters. I had to breed them first because apparently one of them is black, which was super helpful for getting grey sheep. Sure, I could have just gotten black dye from a squid, but nah, why make things easy when I can do it the hard way? Classic me. Then there's this guy, my day one companion and witness to my many murders. I set him free. Well, kinda. I brought him to join the others, where he'll live in eternal captivity. You're welcome, buddy. I dyed him yellow because why not? Oh, and one of the sheep is red now. You know, just to spice things up a bit. I built another pen for the cows because equal treatment for all, right? Then I got to work crafting stone bricks and started building my villager trading hall. But here's the thing, I wasn't vibing with the stone. It looked way too clean, like I've never made a mistake in my life clean. So, naturally, I swapped it out for something messier, like cobblestone. I live on a deserted island and make questionable life choices. Then I crafted some stone with vines for extra texture, because why not? Still wishing I had some spruce wood, but we'll deal with that later. I replaced all the clean stone with cobblestone. Yeah, it fit the whole lonely island aesthetic much better. Then I spent the rest of the night mining because for some reason I had no cobblestone left. Probably because of that darn mob farm. After that I worked on my house. Oh, and while I was at it, I harvested my bamboo farm and started building the cliffside. Busy night, right? I even crafted a campfire and decided to do some genetic experiments with my sheep. Yeah, don't ask. I also bred my cows because we're all about population control here. As the sun came up, I kept working on that little cliff where my trading hall stands, added some finishing touches with dirt and made it look all natural and stuff. Then I lit up the inside because no one wants creepers ruining the vibe. Did a bit of terraforming and then, plot twist, I ran into 2 wandering llamas. But no wandering trader in sight. I mean, where does this guy go? Is he hiding from me? Anyway, I handled the llamas, cleared out another creeper defense unit from the island and started searching for the trader. And guess what? This dude was chilling on top of a tree, like some Minecraft version of Tarzan. So now I'm chasing him down. He didn't have any good traits, so I showed him how well I could swing on vines too. Spoiler, he stood no chance. After that, I went back to working on my roof, took down part of a tree because, well, it was in my way, and planned out the side of my roof to make sure everything was lined up perfectly. Then I moved on to the back of my house. Progress, people. Day 69. Today I focused on the back of my roof and even threw in a chimney for that cozy homely vibe. I finished up the roof and, surprise surprise, decided to change the door again. This time I'm actually happy with it. Finally, day 70. Apparently I've decided that sleep is for the weak because starting around day 60 I stopped sleeping. I mean, who has time for that when there's so much to build? So I bred the sheep again because there's never enough wool. Then I climbed my jungle tree, took down the dirt bridge I had up there and did some maintenance on the tower. I also tore down the massive dirt platform I built and even chopped down the giant jungle tree because I was in full destroyer mode. Then I shifted focus to the attic of my villager trading hall and finished building the exterior. Once I was done on one side, I mirrored the design on the other side because symmetry is everything. I built a way to get up there and dismantled my egg structure. Yeah, I was really getting things done today. With the exterior done, I planted some trees because I'm all about reforestation. Then used bone meal to speed up the process. You know, because patience isn't my strong suit. I also planted a massive jungle tree, threw some bone meal on the grass and built a path leading to the trading hall store. I even bred the sheep again because why not? Then I chopped down some oak wood and started tearing up the floor in the trading hall because clearly I needed a change. And that's where I left things for now. Day 71. Ready to make my villager trading hall look decent, or at least less of an eyesore. I started with installing an oak wood floor because apparently cobblestone wasn't cutting it anymore. After that I built up the attic floor too because hey, villagers need ceilings right. Then I threw in a ladder to get up there and lit the place up like it was a nightclub. Next I started making individual chambers for the villagers and wow, I realized halfway through that they looked absolutely terrible. But whatever, they're functional I guess. Looks are overrated anyway. Day 72 rolled around and I decided that floor, yeah, it had to go. I ripped the whole thing up because I needed to lay down some tracks leading to the villager breeder. The plan? Give these baby villagers a nice one-way ticket straight from birth to their eternal homes, aka jail cells. I threw down some powered rails to make sure they could actually get up there. Gotta love when your prisoners, I mean new residents, don't even want to show up to their own imprisonment because the first guy got stuck halfway up. I had to tweak the setup a bit, but then boom, out of nowhere, he zoomed up all by himself. No idea how that happened, but I'll take it. Welcome to your new life buddy. After making sure he was comfortable, I immediately began preparing the next chamber for his soon soon-to-be roommate, because nothing says luxury like being crammed into a 1x1 space with only a workstation for company. Then it was time to bring up more villagers from the breeder, and let me tell you, this next guy was not having it. He absolutely refused to move at first. Honestly, I kind of get it. If someone told me I was getting promoted to a box where my only job was to trade sticks for emeralds until the end of time, I'd dig my heels in too. But after some gentle encouragement, aka pushing him into a minecart and sending him zooming up the tracks, he finally made it to the top. I'm sure once he got there, he realized, hey, it's not so bad. Not that he could leave or anything. Once he was settled, I decided the layout of the trading hall needed a bit of a makeover. So I tweaked the design a little. Nothing too fancy, just some rearranging. Honestly, I liked it better this way. But then, of course, disaster struck. I ran out of wood. So what did I do? Well, I did the responsible thing and sacrificed my ladder. Yep, just ripped it right off the wall, like it owed me money. After that chaotic mess, I went back to the breeder and brought up 3 more villagers, one by one. Slowly but surely, I filled all the empty slots with new residents, making sure everyone had their little workstations. Of course, I couldn't leave any evidence behind. So, like a true professional, I destroyed the minecart tracks, because we can't have anyone asking questions about how exactly these villagers volunteered to be here. With the trading hall sorted, I turned my attention to my sheep farm, which at this point was starting to look less like a cute pen and more like a woolly mosh pit. Seriously, they were multiplying like crazy. I gave them some more food, because happy sheep the more wool, and finally called it a day. And just like that, another day of ethically questionable villager management and sheep chaos was complete. Day 73. I figured it was a good time to add some variety to my builds, so naturally I chopped down a bunch of bamboo and turned my attention to this fine gentleman right here and then. Crafted an insane amount of bamboo blocks, because clearly I had nothing better to do. Then I started expanding the right side of my island, since I decided I wanted a windmill there, surrounded by a wheat field and a pen for every colored sheep I could get my hands on. Because what's a Minecraft build without unnecessary projects, am I right? I started plotting out a circle for the sheep pens, but realized halfway through one side was longer than the other. Classic me, so back to square one. I had to tear it all down and start counting again. Counting blocks in Minecraft, my favorite way to lose my mind. On day 74, I finally finished the rough outline of the circle. Then I hopped into the middle and drew out a smaller circle, because why not add more geometry to this mess? I also decided to raise everything to raise by 3 to 4 blocks, because sure, let's make things even more complicated. Then I started building up different layers with dirt to avoid that flat look. You know, the one that screams beginner builder. By the end of it all, the entire thing looked like a chaotic dirt pancake. But hey, I knew what was going on, and that's all that mattered. After filling in half of the platform, I repeated the process on the other side, because if you're going to commit to chaos, you gotta go all in. By the end of 2 days and a long night of hard work, the dirt expansion was done faster than anything I've built before. Side note, some dolphin got stranded under the platform, but don't worry, it managed to flop its way back to the water. Nature wins this round. On day 76, I crafted an absurd amount of fences and spent the entire day trying to figure out the perfect radius for each sheep pen. I mean, these sheep need exactly the right amount of space. After some serious math, okay, not really, I just guessed, I finally got it right. Then I spent the rest of the night placing fences like some sort of sheep containment expert. Day 77 was all about dividing the pens into 16 sections. Why 16? Because clearly I need a separate pen for every single color of sheep, and yet that took literally the entire day. By the time night rolled around, I started rounding up all the sheep into their new pens. Let me tell you, it was absolute chaos. Sheep everywhere, bleating like they were staging a revolt. Can't blame them, though I'd be mad too if I got shuffled around like that. Day 78, and you guessed it, still sheep everywhere. I spent the whole day gathering up the stragglers, because apparently sheep are really good at wandering off. Once I finally got them all, I started sorting them by color. Pink, yellow, gray, whatever. By the end, I had 2 pairs of each color, and any extras, yeah, they got sorted out. We won't talk about what happened to them. Day 79, I decided to hollow out half my island, because hey, why not? I needed more clean stone for my builds, so that's what I did. After I finished mining, I went up top and started expanding the cliffside again. Somehow a sheep had gotten up there. How? I have no idea. I ended up playing a round of spleef with myself and then got back to building. Ran out of stone though, so had to go mine even more. Never ending cycle. On day 80, I fed all my sheep again, because apparently I can't stop multiplying them. Then I took out a suspicious imposter in my village lineup, no idea how he got there, and continued working on my raised platform. More stone farming, and this time I lit up the gravesite below it, because falling down there would definitely be fatal. I fed the sheep once more, took a step back to admire my island, and then realized my storage situation was a disaster. So naturally I made some new chests, because why would I ever organize the old ones? With that I called it a night. Day 81. Alright, new day, new chaos. I woke up and thought, what colors can I still make? So I crafted blue dye from lapis. Simple, right? Then I decided it was time to remove the villager who somehow identified as a pink sheep from my island. Don't ask me how that happened. Anyway, after that I borrowed 2 white sheep and dyed them blue. Boom, tossed them into a brand new pen. But wait, why stop there? I mixed the blue dye with red dye. Magic. Number just basic color theory. Suddenly I had purple dye. So I took 2 pink sheep sheep, turned them purple and shoved them into another new pen. And yes, I made them multiply. Sheep baby factory initiated. But then I hit a roadblock. How do I get green and brown dye? Needed those to complete my rainbow sheep army. Turns out the only way was through a wandering trader. Great, so now I had to sit there and hope one would spawn. While waiting, I grabbed 2 grey sheep, dyed them lime green, and, you guessed it, built them their own pen that night. Since I clearly didn't have enough projects, I started building a windmill, because why not? Morning rolled around, and guess what? Still building that windmill. It was one of those all-nighters, just me, my blocks, and endless placing and breaking and placing again. By the time the next morning hit, flashback time-lapse moment, the windmill was finally standing. Kinda proud, kinda sleep-deprived. Day 83. Day 83 was basically just me adding the finishing touches to the windmill, polishing, fixing, stepping back, realizing something looked off, fixing it again, rinse and repeat until it didn't hurt my eyes anymore. Next morning, big brain move. I decided my fences needed to be escape-proof because my sheep escape artists. Then I started building a path connecting my main island. To do that, I had to go through a hollow mountain. Sounds cool, except for the creeper waiting for me like it was a surprise party. Nearly got blasted into next week. Lit the place up faster than a Christmas tree. Took care of his buddy too. After punching a hole through the mountain, I crafted a proper path and lined it with stone. Voila, tunnel done. Then it was time to transform the area around the windmill into farmland. Because what's a windmill without wheat fields, right? Of course, halfway through, I realized this was taking forever. So guess what? More unpaid overtime. Classic. Eventually, I finished tilling the land and grabbed a mountain of seeds. Planted wheat everywhere like I was starting a bread empire. Day 85, morning again. Time for a makeover. I needed space, which meant every tree inside gone. Axed them down. No mercy. Then I started building an elevated area in the back where I planned to add a few houses. Drew a neat stone outline, then immediately changed my mind. Typical. Switched to dirt instead. Once I was happy with the rough shape, I went over it again, adding some depth because flat terrain, boring. After some tweaking and fiddling, I began filling in the top. Made sure there was enough variation between platforms. Gotta keep things interesting. Day 86 was more of the same. Working on the elevated area. Started placing stone in the front. Tried to make it look natural, or as natural as Minecraft allows. Tossed in a few grass blocks too. Expanded the platform above. Finally settled on the size and filled the whole thing in. Adding a sprinkle of torches because monsters crashing the party. No thanks. New day, new plan. Time to build some houses. I figured I'd start with my own house. Makes sense, right? Originally planned for a wide design, but once I saw how massive it was gonna be, nope, shrunk it down instantly. The new size and roof height felt way better. Started building the front, taking inspiration from my villager trading hall. Added some decorations out front, until I reached the good enough stage. I mean, it didn't look like a dirt hut anymore, so progress. Day 88 was all about the roof. Crafted a bunch of stone blocks and zipped through the roof build, speedrun style. Capped it off with a chimney, because a house without a chimney, blasphemy. Threw a campfire inside for the classic smoke effect. Chef's kiss. Kicked off day 89 by chopping down one of those ridiculously tall, skinny jungle trees. Felt personal. Then I added some exterior decorations to my house, but hit a roadblock when I realized my storage chests were in the way of the wall. Solution? Ignore the problem entirely. Classic move. Instead of tackling the chest chaos, I ran around my island, planting leaves everywhere. Call it procrastination landscaping. During my escape mission, I noticed 2 random things wandering around. No clue where they came from, but I handled it. Let's leave it at that. After tearing down my enchantment table, I started fixing my house wall, because apparently leaving a random hole in your house isn't considered modern design. Once that was done, I went full gardening mode and planted a few trees behind my house. Gotta keep the jungle vibes alive, right? Then it was time for some decoration. I added vines to the houses, because nothing says cozy jungle home like having plants slowly trying to reclaim your entire build. But then, the chest problem. Oh, the horror. My storage situation was a total disaster. Chests overflowing, random items scattered everywhere, so decided to deal with it once and for all. Step 1. I tore down the wall to make space for my new storage area. Let's also just conveniently ignore the fact that the back of my mountain was still completely open. Yeah, we don't talk about that. Next, I started laying down a wooden floor, because even my storage room deserves a bit of style. Then came the worst part. I'm moving all the chests. I broke every single one down and started relocating them to the back of the room. It was a chaotic mess, items flying everywhere, but I powered through. Once the chests were in their new spots, I started organizing everything with military precision. Okay, maybe not military precision, but at least my dirt wasn't hanging out next to my diamonds anymore. I even added a few extra chests, because let's be honest, you can never have too much storage in Minecraft. By the time I was done, my brain felt as messy as my inventory had been, so like any sensible person, I decided to call it a day and go to sleep. On day 90, I finally covered the back of my chests and decided to add a ceiling right away. Above the chests, I placed some half blocks so I could still open them, because what's the point if you can't actually use it, right? Then I took a moment to think about how I wanted to design the rest of the house. I started organizing all the items I had collected over the past 90 days into the chests, neatly of course. After that, I filled in the floor and built a small kitchen. Once the kitchen was done, I grabbed the only unsorted chest I had left and took the time to organize it too. Then I placed my anvil and my bed and even fixed the windows, which had been bugging me for a while. while. I added glass everywhere and installed some ceiling lights, because a dark house is just a fancy cave. Surprisingly, I was pretty happy with the final result. This is what my house looked like from the outside. To wrap things up, I did some exterior decorating and even added a sign to make it feel more official. And of course, no Minecraft day would be complete without my bed being immediately claimed by an uninvited guest. Seriously, villager, get out. I spent the entirety of day 91 building a small house nearby. It wasn't meant to serve any real purpose. It was just for decoration. Sometimes you gotta build for the vibes, not the functionality. On the morning of day 92, I harvested my wheat field and replanted everything, because a farmer's work is never done. Then I fed all my sheep again. They're eating better than I am at this point, and gathered materials for the next house. Without much of a plan, I started laying out the foundation somewhere random. Once the base was set, I built up the wooden logs for the frame and added the walls. After deciding on the height of the roof, I began working on it, starting, as always, with the outline before filling it in. No floating roof disasters here. Day 93 began without a break, since I worked straight through the night. Grind never stops. I finished the rough shape of the roof and added a little rooftop detail, because honestly, it looked way too plain without something extra. Once that was done, I obviously had to build a chimney and added a campfire for some realistic smoke. Then I went full nature mode, grabbing a bunch of leaves and running around, placing them everywhere. Seriously, at this point, I think leaves are 50% of my decoration strategy. After adding more exterior details, yes, more leaves, I stood back and felt surprisingly proud of how it turned out. Feeling ambitious, I decided my next project would be a small river, starting from a spring at the top of the mountain and running through my island. I dug a small pond at the top as the water source. The next day, I filled the pond with water and started digging the riverbed all the way to the ocean. Midway through, I realized I might have a slight problem. My river looked more like a dirt trench, so I filled it back up with dirt and kept digging until the river properly reached the sea. To add some final touches, I placed lily pads at the spring and spent the rest of the day filling the river with water. The end result, not too shabby. My island was slowly starting to come together. Day 95 was all about decorating the start of the river. I ran around for the rest of the day, trying to figure out my next project. Finally, I settled on building a beach bar, because what's an island without a chill spot to sip imaginary pina coladas? Once the bar was done, well, done is a strong word. It was okay, I guess. To finish off the day, I carved out some pathways and quickly built a small bridge so my overly adventurous villagers wouldn't accidentally pull a Minecraft-style disappearing act into the river. Safety first. On day 96, I grabbed a bunch of building materials because I wanted to build 2 more houses up on the mountain. When I got there, I ran into another wandering trader. This guy was selling brown and cyan dye. Cool, but I wanted green. So, let's just say the trader mysteriously disappeared. After that, I took 2 black sheep and dyed them brown, then took 2 blue sheep and dyed them cayenne. Basically, I borrowed sheep and gave them surprise makeovers. With that done, I planned the layouts for the 2 mountain houses. I built the walls of the smaller house first, then moved on to the larger one. By the end of the day, the basic structures of both houses were standing. The next day, surprise, another wandering trader showed up. This one finally had spruce wood. Great, only about 50 days too late. At least he had green dye, so I bought it. Borrowed 2 more sheep and dyed them green. And just like that, I had almost every color. Wait, something wasn't right. The sheep were in the wrong pens, so I had to shift all the sheep 1 pen to the right. And since I needed light blue sheep too, I crafted white dye from bone meal, dyed 2 blue sheep white, and then bred them together. Boom, light blue sheep. Call me a geneticist at this point. And with that, I finally had every sheep color. Oh, but then I had to separate the blue and white sheep from the light blue ones. That was a fun little dance. By the end of the day, I went back up the mountain and worked through the night, building the roofs for both houses. Day 98. The next morning, I finished the first roof and added a chimney with a campfire, because consistency is key. Then I started on the second house by building the roof slope and filling it all in. Of course, I added a chimney here too. With both houses finally complete, I added some decorations, put in the windows, and spent a bit of time organizing my chests again. On the second to last day, I planted a flower bed and set my parrots free to fly around the island. I also planted some carrots. Then I decided to build a dock using campfires. Yes, campfires. Once I was done, I extinguished them with water and added wooden fences for extra support. With the first dock done, I even tied up a few boats. It actually looked pretty cool. Next, I built a second dock in an L shape using the same materials. I placed lanterns on both docks for some cozy lighting. Feeling a bit guilty about my overpopulated villager breeder, I decided to set all my villagers free. Seriously, there were like 40 of them stuffed in there. It was getting weird. They quickly spread across my island, and I added even more lanterns to keep things safe at night. Then I trimmed my cow population, sorry cows, and let a few roam the island freely. To finish the day, I planted bamboo everywhere, because jungle vibes. But maybe releasing all the villagers wasn't the best idea. There were a lot of them. Day 100, finally. Day 100, I ran around my island planting more bamboo, adding trees, and spreading bone meal to grow grass. I also added extra leaves to my houses for that overgrown, natural look. We did it. I somehow managed to achieve all the goals I set for myself and survive 100 days without dying even once. Still don't know how that happened. This video was a lot of fun to make, but let me tell you, it was also a ton of work. I spent around 100 hours on it. So if you enjoyed watching, feel free to subscribe because I'm aiming for 1000 subscribers by the end of the year. Thanks for sticking around and I'll see you in the next video.